Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to this session, Readings from Six Continents, where we are going to go on a journey across the world in 40 minutes, with readings from six continents, from the beaches in Brazil to the snows of Denmark, a schoolroom in Korea, to the sub-Saharan landscape of Cameroon, from the crime scenes in the USA to the fringes of Australian society and a language classroom for immigrants in France. Our speakers on the panel are distinguished writers from across the world. We are privileged to have with us Adriana Lisboa from Brazil, who lives in France. We have Yujoo from Korea, Kathy Reichs from the USA, Josefine Klougart from Denmark, Léonora Miano from the Cameroons, and Tara June Winch from Australia. Most of them have Cameroon and France. In fact, most of our speakers have transcultural backgrounds, have relocated, and they actually work, live, and write across continents. We will listen to their voices, and as they read from their works, we will see the minute particularities of time, place, experience, and emotions from different parts of the globe. And as we listen to their voices, maybe we will begin to ask ourselves, do these voices speak to each other in some way? Is there some way that we can imagine something bigger than the literature of this or that place or continent, something that we could perhaps think of as world literature? We will have a discussion after the readings, and we will have a few questions from the audience, but time is very short, so we will have to do everything quickly. So I will now invite the first author on our panel, Adriana Lisboa, to read from her work.
Okay, thank you. Is this working? Am I supposed to get?
It's working.
Is it? Can anyone hear? Can everyone hear me? No, they say no, so forget it.
Would you like to use this mic?
Yeah? Yes? Okay. Well, good afternoon. Pleasure to be here, and I would like to thank the Embassy of Brazil, who made my being here today possible. I'm going to read a passage from a book about which, unfortunately, I don't have the time to say much, but I think it's enough to say that this passage is a young Brazilian woman thinking about her childhood years back in Copacabana, of all places. So there we go. I think of Copacabana. I remember the light, my fingers digging tunnels and building castles in the wet sand, patiently. There were other children around, but we were all the beginning, middle, and end of our own private universes. And further along was a horizon to which I gave no thought, the imaginary line where the sky and sea parted company, liquid to one side, not liquid to the other, a kind of concrete abstract. I left the horizon in peace and preferred to dream of islands which were real and which maybe I'd be able to swim to if I ever got serious about swimming, and which were separated by a world of different shadows, a world where speeds and sounds were different, where animals very different to me lived, a world of fish, of algae, of mollusks, of crow blue shells, like those I would read about in a poem much later. A whole other life, another register, But a human being could actually swim between them, observe them, dive to the ocean floor in Copacabana, and touch the intimacy of the sand there, so far from the popsicle sticks and volleyballs. The intimacy that was completely alien to the usual chaos of the neighborhood of Copacabana, where people hurried along or dawdled with the elderly gait of the retired, or mugged or got mugged, or queued at the bank, or lifted weights at the gym, or begged at traffic lights, or pretended not to see people begging at traffic lights, or looked at the pretty woman, or were the pretty woman with the tiny triangles of her bikini top, or tallied up prices on the supermarket cash register, or picked up litter from the sidewalks and streets, or tossed litter on the sidewalks and streets, or sold sex to tourists, or wrote poems, or walked their dogs. The drama of the city didn't even figure in the subconscious of the ocean floor. It wasn't important or relevant. It didn't even exist there. The horizon was the theme of those who yearned for the impossible, so they could keep on yearning, I guess. Pondering the poetry and symbolism of the horizon wasn't for me. I prefer to ponder islands and fish. Or, better yet, the architecture of the castle I was building that morning, which was not going to crumble this time. There were children and adults around me. I was aware of their existence, more or less peripherally. We could get along well if we didn't bother one another, if we interacted as little as possible. The beach was large and free of charge. The sun was for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. We now invite Kathy Reichs to read from her work.
Thank you. My new book is actually this one, which is a brand new character Sunday night, but I thought it would be fun to read to you from the manuscript I just turned in a week ago, which is a brand new Temperance Brennan book, and you are the only people who will have heard anything from it. So I'm just going to say Tempe's under a lot of stress when this book opens. Her boss has been murdered, and there are a lot of things going on in her personal and professional life that really have her under a lot of strain. Hopefully I can do this with the iPad and the mic simultaneously. Looking back, I admit I spun out of control. Perhaps going rogue was an attempt to steer unsteerable forces. A bird flip to aging, a cry for Ryan's attention, a subconscious effort to drive him away. Or maybe it was just the damn Carolina heat. Who knows? I was holding my own until the faceless man finally sent me over the edge. His remains and the subsequent investigation punched a big black hole in my smug little world. Mama spotted the changes long before the enigmatic corpse turned up. The distractedness, the agitation, the short temper. I denied it, of course, knowing she was right. I was ignoring emails, the phone, declining invitations in favor of solo binging on old Hollywood flicks, and the dreams. Twisting montages filled with dark figures and vague dangers or frustrating tasks I couldn't complete. Anxiety, hormones, didn't matter the cause. I was sleeping little, constantly restless and exhausted. It didn't take Freud to recognize I was in a bad place. So there I was, after midnight, jogging in the same park in which Larrabee had been gunned down. Old Sigmund might have had offered a comment on that. The weather was beyond Dixie summer night warm. The air was muggy and hot, and my t-shirt was pasted to my back. It had rained as I'd eaten my microwave pizza dinner at 10, and moisture still hung thick in the air. Puddles glistened black on the pavement, went yellow as my fuzzy shadow and I passed under street lamps blurred by mist. The lake was a dark void, woolly where the water met the bank. Murky shapes glided its surface, silent, aware of their tenuous state. Park officials fight an endless, often creative, battle. No matter the deterrent, the geese always come back. I was passing a black Lego form I knew to be a picnic pavilion when I sensed, more than heard, another presence. Heart pumping faster, I squinted hard. A man was standing in the smear of shadow below the pavilion's roof. His face was down, his features obscured, medium height and build. I could tell little else about him except one thing. Despite the stifling heat, the man was wearing a trench coat. When he raised an arm, perhaps to check a watch, the fabric flashed pale in the gloom enveloping him. One nervous glance as I jogged past. 8 more strides, then I slowed and turned and glanced back. The pavilion was empty. I stopped, panting, checked in both directions along the trail. The man was gone. The mist began to morph back into rain. Listless drops tested for foothold on my face and hair. Time to boogie. I turned and caught a flicker of gray. There, then gone. Shot of adrenaline. Was Trenchcoat targeting me after all? If not, what was he doing in a park in the rain in the middle of the night? And why so elusive? Or was my wariness a product of paranoia, another gift from my overburdened stress-strain curve? Either way, I was glad I'd shoved pepper spray into a shorts pocket before leaving home. Unbidden, images of Larrabee's last moments unspooled in my head, the gray-green pallor of his skin, the eerie glow of the surgical trauma ICU, the impartial pinging of the monitors recording their bloodless peaks and valleys, the screaming silence when the pinging stopped. Later, in an interview room smelling of fear and sweat, the slouchy indifference of the brain-fried tweaker who had sent bullets into Larrabee's belly. Stop! Aloud or in my head? I lengthened my stride, footfalls pounding loud in the stillness. A full minute, then a trench-coated silhouette, far up where the trail emptied into a small parking lot. The man was walking slowly, his back to me. Suddenly, noise seemed to ricochet from all around, rustling leaves, shifting branches, snapping twigs. Night creatures? Or trench coats, geeked out pals looking to fund more meth? I had no valuables, carried no money, wore no watch. Would that anger them? Or were the sounds just my own overwrought nerves? I patted the pepper spray at my right hip, felt the canister, pink and nasty. Momentary indecision. Veer off and cut through the tangle of shrubs and trees enclosing the park? Stay on the path and time my pace in order to pass the man in the parking lot? There were street lamps there, overwhelmed, but trying their best. I slowed. Trenchcoat was now just 10 yards ahead. My brain chose that moment to unreel a blockbuster tableau. As I passed, the man would pull a knife and slit my throat. Our eyes would meet. His would be cruel and cold as death. Jesus, why was I letting this rattle me? In my line of work, I encounter far worse than a dude dressed like Bogey in Casablanca. Outlaw bikers who chainsaw the heads and hands from their murdered rivals. Macho pricks who stalk and strangle their terrified exes. Drunken bullies who wall slam fussy infants. Those creeps don't dissuade me from focusing on my job, quite the reverse. They inspire me to work harder. So why the drama over a guy in a belted coat? Why the sense of threat? Yes, I'd hit a rough patch, personally, professionally. The latter was self-inflicted. I could have been more diplomatic. I could have kept my mouth shut. Who knew my comments would come back to bite me in the ass? Right, don't they always? So here I was, out in the woods, not home in my bed, with a psycho or a harmless geezer overly sensitive to damp. Screw it. The route would take longer, but I decided to cut out of the park and weave through neighborhood streets. Before leaving the trail, I paused, one last look. The man was in the empty lot, standing under one of the struggling lamps. His chin was raised, his features vaguely discernible as dark blotches on a smudgy white rectangle. My breath froze. The man was staring straight at me. Or was he? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We now invite Josefine Klougart to read from her work.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I'm going to read a passage from my third novel. It's called One of Us is Sleeping, and it is actually a novel about a young woman in her mid-20s who is abandoned by a man, and in her grief she returns to her childhood home in the countryside in Jutland in Denmark, and it's winter time and it's snowing all the time. This endless snow just keeps falling. But the passage I'm going to read that I picked for this session is a passage that is not about laws, it's about literature, as such. The bark of the apple tree is black, alone in the garden black. It cuts into the winter like calligraphy. The winter paints white dogs yellow and makes the night luminous and, in a way, unreal. Anesthetized sleep blowing through the streets, a flood of quiet, quiet. The tree is a shadow of another, realer world, that's what I think. And the apples are still attached, too red and certainly too late. Droplets suspended on black branches. They hang there today, they hang there all night. Not being able to see them in the dark doesn't mean they don't shine. There's a small handful of images to which I keep returning, a hierarchy belonging to the body and the mind. They are pictures of the emotions. They won't let go. You go back to them again and again, wanting to get closer. Occasionally it happens in spite of everything. In some way or another you manage to gain access. A moment to reach them and show them, return them to the world. Then perhaps you're able to recall. Everyone has these images, 4, 5, or 6 of them. It's all about coming closer. They are what you write toward, paint toward. They are what you want to say and to share with other eyes, another's gaze. You speak and you point, though perhaps no one is there to see. Look, you say perhaps. How then to hand the image on, to implant it within another, within you? That's the issue. Whether you can even carry them alone, whether I can. I need the eyes of another voice to share it with. It's too much a burden, and I write with the expectation. At the top of my hierarchy is the image of the apple tree with its bright apples. There is an image of the bedroom window with light steaming in, a morning in summer, the panes in need of cleaning, cobwebs and some leaves from the purple beach. There is an image of a pair of espadrille sandals on a bathing jetty, and the sea that stretches out behind a sleeping body. It's autumn and no one in sight. An image of a stable after the animals have been put out to pasture for the summer. The catastrophes you encounter in life may seem unreal, but they are real. The alienation that makes you think that some people are more real than others is a construct. People are no more or less alien, no more or less real. more people as such, and always impending the slap in the face for not having known, not realizing that particular unreality was just a matter of what? Of eventually swallowing one's knowledge of the world, swallowing one's own ideas about knowing anything at all. We know so very little, so little that we think to be knowledge is hardly worth reckoning with at all. Instead, we ought to settle for being pleasantly surprised if on the edge of all things, against all expectations, our assumptions should be disproved. If it turns out that we know just a fragment of the world, constant motion, collapsing buildings, a meticulous work in stone, the unfamiliar as a wall that we must forever scrabble to remove in order to find our humanity there and perhaps love someone. Pass on one or two images, share them with someone else, a you. That kind of motion into the world, an escapism in reverse, a tower I built to be able to see what is there. You, for instance, a desire to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Josefine. We now invite Léonora Miano to read from her work. Léonora will read in the original French, and then we will hear the English translation.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here. I would like to thank, of course, the festival, the French Institute in India, Seagull Books, my Indian publisher, for having me and for making the novel available. So I will read in the French version of the text. Oh, by the way, these are my last words in English. I will switch to French now. Donc je vais lire un extrait du texte original en français. Le roman s'intitule La saison de l'ombre. Il se déroule dans une Afrique centrale précoloniale. C'est un roman non pas sur le trafic humain transatlantique, mais un roman du trafic humain transatlantique qui raconte la partie de l'histoire qui n'est jamais dite, c'est-à-dire l'expérience, le vécu des familles de captifs déportés vers les Amériques. On oublie souvent que ces personnes avaient un nom, une famille, des gens qui les aimaient, qu'ils appartenaient à une communauté et qu'ils ont manqué à quelqu'un. Donc j'ai voulu écrire cette histoire parce qu'elle me manquait. Et donc ici dans ce roman, nous sommes sur les terres d'une petite communauté subsaharienne, à l'intérieur des terres et non pas sur la côte, qui est attaquée au cours d'une nuit. Il y a un incendie, les cases du village sont en flammes, la population s'échappe pour se protéger du feu. Elle va dans la forêt avoisinante. Et le matin, quand tout le monde revient, eh bien, il manque 12 personnes. Et on ne sait pas ce qui leur est arrivé. Et comme on ne sait pas ce qui s'est passé, eh bien, on cherche un peu des responsables, on tente de s'expliquer le mal qui est survenu. Et on décide d'écarter de la communauté 10 femmes qui sont les mères de 10 jeunes gens qui ont disparu au cours de cette nuit. Donc l'extrait que je vais lire nous présente un peu ces 10 femmes qui ont été recluses dans une habitation à l'écart des autres. Bien sûr, on leur a expliqué, c'est la matrone qui s'en est chargée, que la mesure serait provisoire, ne durerait que le temps pour les anciens de mieux cerner la situation. Ensuite, elles pourraient regagner leur foyer. Cela n'a pas suffi à les rassurer. Elles marchent tête baissée, se parlent peu, ne voient pas leurs plus jeunes enfants laissés sous la surveillance des coépouses. Quand vient l'heure du repos, elles posent la nuque sur un appuie-tête en bois pour préserver les coiffures élaborées qu'elles continuent d'arborer, espérant ainsi qu'ils garantissent la qualité de leurs songes. L'instant dévolu au rêve s'aborde avec la solennité d'un rituel. Le rêve est un voyage en soi, hors de soi, dans la profondeur des choses et au-delà. Il n'est pas seulement un temps, mais aussi un espace, le lieu du dévoilement, celui de l'illusion parfois. Le monde invisible étant aussi peuplé d'entités maléfiques. On ne pose pas sa tête n'importe où lorsque l'on s'apprête à faire un songe. Il faut un support adéquat, un objet sculpté dans un bois choisi pour l'esprit qui l'abrite et sur lequel des paroles sacrées ont été prononcées avant qu'il ne soit taillé. Même en ayant pris toutes ces précautions, il n'est pas conseillé de se fier à une voix que l'on pense avoir identifiée. D'un même mouvement, les femmes se retournent. Le geste est nerveux. Elles n'ouvrent pas les yeux. La voix se fait pressante, s'évanouit. Les derniers mots résonnent dans leur esprit. Devant le jour, tout sera perdu. Les paupières closes laissent filtrer des larmes, tandis qu'elles glissent une main entre les jambes, plient les genoux. Elles ne peuvent s'ouvrir comme cela, se laisser pénétrer par une ombre. Elles pleurent. Cela leur arrive à toutes, là, maintenant. Si l'une d'elles a eu la faiblesse de se déverrouiller, les autres n'en sauront rien. Aucune ne parlera de ce rêve. Aucune ne prendra une sœur à part pour lui chuchoter. Il est venu, mon premier-né. Il m'a demandé. Elles ne prononceront pas les noms de ces fils dont on ignore le sort, de peur que le mal ne s'empare de cette vibration particulière. S'ils sont encore en vie, la prudence est de mise. Ces noms ne les quittent pas. Ils chantent en elles de l'aurore au crépuscule, les poursuivent ensuite quand elles dorment. Parfois, elles n'ont rien d'autre à l'esprit.